Sometimes, the people you trust the most are the ones who end up destroying you. I thought I knew my wife. I thought the bond we had was unbreakable. I was wrong. So very wrong. My name is Matthew. I'm 36 years old, and I've worked my entire life to build my career. I didn't come from money, didn't have any connections. Every success I've had, I earned through sleepless nights, endless sacrifices, and sheer determination. After years of grinding in the corporate world, I was finally on the verge of something huge, a promotion to vice president at one of the top firms in the city. This wasn't just another step up the ladder. This was the culmination of everything I had fought for, and through it all, my wife, Francesca, had been by my side. Or at least I thought she was. Francesca was stunning. The kind of woman who turned heads when she walked into a room. But she wasn't just a pretty face. She was smart, charismatic, and knew exactly how to carry herself in any situation. We had been married for 8 years, and to me, we were unshakable. She had always been my biggest supporter. She cheered me on when I was down, celebrated my wins like they were her own, and always said she was proud of me. I wanted to give her the world. She loved the finer things in life, designer clothes, luxury vacations, expensive jewelry. And I worked my ass off to give her all of it, because I believed she deserved it. She was my partner, my confidant, my everything. But in the weeks leading up to the most important night of my career, the corporate dinner where my promotion would finally be announced, something changed. Francesca started to feel distant, subtle things at first. She was more distracted, glued to her phone more than usual. Whenever I walked into the room, she'd quickly lock the screen or flip it face down. I told myself it was nothing. She had her own life, her own things to deal with. Maybe she was stressed. God knows I was. But deep down, something gnawed at me, an unease I couldn't shake. The night of the corporate dinner finally arrived. I was nervous but excited. This was supposed to be my moment. I had worked too hard for too long, and tonight, I'd finally see it all pay off. I put on my best suit, and Francesca, well, she looked breathtaking. She wore a sleek black dress that hugged her in all the right places, her dark hair cascading over her shoulders in perfect waves. She had this effortless grace about her that made people stop and stare. And as we left the house together, I felt proud to have her on my arm. At the venue, everything felt like a blur at first. Handshakes, polite smiles, small talk. My mind was racing with thoughts of the announcement, imagining the applause, the congratulatory pats on the back. Francesca was by my side the whole time, charming everyone she spoke to, laughing at all the right jokes, playing the perfect supportive wife, and then I saw him, Gerald, my boss, the man who held my future in his hands. Gerald was the kind of guy you either admired or despised, or both. He was sharp, commanding, and had this magnetic presence that made people hang on his every word. He had climbed the corporate ladder faster than anyone, and I had spent years earning his trust and respect. But that night, something felt off. It started small. A lingering glance between him and Francesca, a hand on the small of her back. That stayed there a little too long. A whisper too close to her ear. At first, I told myself I was imagining it. I was just nervous, tense, overthinking things. But the more I watched, the clearer it became. She laughed too easily at his jokes, touched his arm more often than necessary. Their conversations felt too intimate, too familiar. And then, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. Whenever they thought no one was looking, their eyes met with a spark that wasn't supposed to be there. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but I saw it. And once you see something like that, you can't unsee it. I felt like I couldn't breathe. My chest tightened, and for a moment, I thought I might lose it right there in the middle of the room. But then I remembered where I was, who I was. I had spent years perfecting my composure, my poker face. If something was happening between my wife and my boss, I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of knowing I had caught on. Not yet. Francesca must have felt my gaze on her because she turned to me with a bright smile. "I'm going to step outside for a minute. Need to make a quick call," she said casually, leaning in to kiss my cheek. I nodded, forcing a smile. "Sure, take your time," but inside every alarm bell was ringing. She left. Minutes passed, then more minutes. Too many minutes. I glanced at my watch, heart pounding. She was gone for too long. I knew something wasn't right. But instead of confronting her, instead of storming outside and demanding answers, I made a decision. If this was what I thought it was, I wasn't going to act on impulse. I wasn't going to let emotions cloud my judgment. No. I was going to play the long game. I was going to find out the truth no matter how painful. And when I did, I wouldn't just confront them. I would destroy them. I couldn't sit still. As the minutes dragged on, my mind spiraled. I had to know. I slipped away from the crowded banquet hall, weaving through groups of colleagues and clients, making sure no one noticed. Me leave. My pulse pounded in my ears as I made my way down the quiet hallway that led to the back entrance of the venue. And then I saw them, Francesca and Gerald. They were tucked away in a dimly lit corner near the emergency exit, away from the noise and eyes of the party. Gerald was leaning in close, his hand resting on Francesca's hip, whispering something in her ear that made her smile. That smile she used to save for me. My fists clenched at my sides, but I forced myself to stay calm. Storming in there, screaming, and demanding answers would do nothing but give them the upper hand. I needed proof. I needed leverage. I stepped back into the shadows, pulled out my phone, and started recording. Their voices were faint, but clear enough. "Are you sure he doesn't suspect anything?" Gerald asked, his voice low and smooth. Francesca chuckled softly. "Matt, please. He's too wrapped up in his work. He has no clue." My stomach churned, but I kept recording. Gerald grinned. "Good. After tonight, he won't even matter." Francesca leaned in, resting her head on his shoulder. "I can't wait until it's just us. No more sneaking around." I ended the recording and slipped my phone back into my pocket. My hands were trembling, not from sadness, but from rage. The betrayal cut deep, but more than that, I felt a surge of determination. They thought I was clueless. They had no idea who they were messing with. I didn't confront them. Not yet. I walked back into the main hall, plastered a smile on my face, and played the role of the unsuspecting husband perfectly. But in my mind, I was already plotting. That night, I barely slept. I stayed up replaying the recording over and over. Every time I heard Francesca's voice dismiss me so easily, my resolve hardened. Every time I heard Gerald talk about me like I was irrelevant, my rage simmered. I needed more than just one recording. I needed a plan. The next morning, while Francesca slept beside me, I quietly got out of bed, grabbed my laptop, and started digging. I knew Gerald. He wasn't the saint he pretended to be. Guys like him always had skeletons in their closets. I just had to find them. And it didn't take long. Within hours, I found whispers and rumors about Gerald's past, affairs with subordinates, questionable financial decisions, even a few shady business deals that were swept under the rug. None of it was concrete, but it was enough to give me a trail to follow. I created a new folder on my laptop titled Insurance and started collecting everything I found. Every email, every text, every suspicious transaction. I recorded every conversation Francesca had when she thought I wasn't listening. Slowly, piece by piece, I built my case. But I wasn't just going to expose them, I was going to make them destroy each other. I started subtly. At home, I became more distant, more distracted. Francesca barely noticed. She was too busy texting, clients, and staying late at the gym. But I made sure she knew I was pulling away. I wanted her to feel like something was off. At work, I played the loyal employee, the hard-working executive-to-be. But every now and then, I'd casually mention Gerald's name in conversations, always with just a hint of doubt or a raised eyebrow. I knew how fast rumors spread in our office. And then, I set the real trap. I left my laptop open one morning with an email draft accidentally visible. It was addressed to the company's HR department, outlining concerns about Gerald's inappropriate relationships with employees. No names, just enough detail to make someone curious. I knew Francesca would see it when she walked past my desk. She always did. That night, she was quieter than usual. Perfect. The next few weeks were a careful balancing act. I planted seeds of doubt everywhere I could. To Francesca, I made little. Comments about trust and betrayal, always with a smirk that made her wonder if I knew something. I'd glance at her phone when it buzzed, just long enough to make her paranoid. To Gerald, I started hinting at the office about how competitive the VP promotion was, mentioning offhand that not everyone plays fair. And then I dropped the bomb. I created an anonymous email account and sent Gerald an email with the subject line, "She's not the only one, is she?" The body of the email was short and to the point. "You think Francesca won't find out about the others? She's smarter than you think. Watch your back." I knew Gerald's ego wouldn't let him ignore it. A few days later, I saw it happening. Francesca became more irritable, more suspicious. She started checking Gerald's phone whenever she could. Gerald, on the other hand, became more guarded, more tense around Francesca. Exactly what I wanted. The final piece of my plan was the most satisfying. I compiled every piece of evidence I had, the recordings, the emails, the shady financial deals, the affair with Francesca, and loaded them onto a flash drive. I made sure it was labeled confidential in big, bold letters. Then I accidentally left it on my desk at work. It didn't take long. By the end of the day, the flash drive had mysteriously disappeared. I smiled to myself. I knew exactly where it went. Straight to HR. The day the flash drive disappeared from my desk, I knew the endgame had officially begun. I stayed calm, acting as if nothing had happened, but I could feel the tension around me. Whispers in the hallways. Glances exchanged between colleagues. The calm before the storm. 2 days later, the storm hit. I was in my office when I saw Gerald being escorted upstairs to the executive conference room. His face was pale, lips pressed into a thin line. He tried to keep his composure, but I could see it. The fear in his eyes. I leaned back in my chair, a slow grin spreading across my face. They had found everything. The financial discrepancies, the affairs, the abuse of power, the cherry on top, his affair with Francesca, my wife. The company couldn't afford a scandal, not at his level. By the end of the day, Gerald was gone, fired, disgraced, his career over. But I wasn't done yet. Francesca found out that evening. I was sitting at the kitchen table, sipping my coffee, when she stormed in, her face red with panic. "Matt, did you hear? Gerald was fired," she blurted out, pacing back and forth. "It's all over the office. Financial misconduct, inappropriate relationships. It's insane." I watched her silently, taking another slow sip. She stopped, noticing my calm demeanor. "Why are you so quiet? This is huge." I set my cup down and leaned forward. "Yeah, it is, isn't it?" Her eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" I smiled. "It means I've known for weeks, Francesca." Her face froze. "Known what?" "That you were sleeping with him," I said casually, leaning back in my chair. "I've known since the night of the corporate dinner." She took a step back, her mouth opening and closing, searching for words. "Matt, I cut her off. Save it. I recorded everything, every word, every touch, every lie." Her face turned white. "You recorded us?" I chuckled softly. "Did you really think I wouldn't find out? That I wouldn't do something about it?" Tears welled up in her eyes. "Matt, please. It wasn't, I didn't mean to." "Didn't mean to?" I interrupted, laughing bitterly. "You lied to me, over and over, and the best part? You thought I was too stupid to notice." She reached out, but I stood up, backing away. "Don't. Just don't." Her voice cracked. So So what happens now? I grabbed a folder from the counter and tossed it on the table. These are divorce papers, already signed. And before you ask, yeah, I've had them ready for a while. Her eyes widened in shock. You're divorcing me? Of course I am, I replied coldly. You thought you could betray me and walk away unscathed? She shook her head frantically. No, Matt, please, we can fix this. We can go. To therapy, talk about it, anything. I'll do anything, I smirked. You'll do anything? Well, funny thing about that. I pulled out another document from my pocket and slid it across the table. This is a list of all the debts you now owe. Her hands trembled as she picked it up. Debts? What debts? I don't have any debts. I leaned in close, lowering my voice. You do now. I transferred all our joint debts to your name weeks ago. Every credit card, every loan, all of it. Congratulations, Francesca. You're officially broke. She stared at me, tears streaming down her face. You did this to me? I nodded slowly. Yes. Yes, I did. Why? She whispered. Because you deserved it, I said, my voice like ice. And because I could. She collapsed into a chair, sobbing uncontrollably. But I felt nothing. No sympathy, no regret. I grabbed my suitcase by the door and headed out. Where are you going? She cried. Home, I replied, simply. To my parents. Somewhere peaceful. Somewhere I don't have to see your face every day. Matt, please. Don't do this, she begged. I didn't even look back. I walked out the door, got in my car, and drove away. As I reached the edge of town, I pulled over, took out my phone, and deleted her number. No second thoughts, no what-ifs, just peace. Some people destroy their own lives and never understand how or why. Francesca was one of them. But now, that wasn't my problem anymore.